Hi, my name's Vince and welcome to episode 5 of the YouTube Fixers, the series which showcases YouTubers from all around the world doing what they do best, fixing things. And in this episode today we have a Sega Master System, which doesn't seem very happy when it's displaying onto a TV. We also have a Nintendo 2DS, which is not happy playing its games. And lastly, we have a Microsoft Surface Pro 3, which keeps exceeding the USB power limit. Now, to kick off this episode, we have Craig from the YouTube channel Goodwins Place. And on Craig's channel, he likes to repair and enhance retro tech. And in this episode, he's got himself a Sega Master System, but not the original one, the version 2. And it's got a bad RF port, so it's not displaying properly on the TV. The sound's cutting in and out, and also is going from colour to black and white. So rather than fixing the RF connection, he's going to make it better than factory, and he's going to get an RGB signal to come out of it. So here we have Craig.
Thanks Vince, and welcome to the garage. So today we're going to look at a faulty Sega Master System 2. Not a system I've got a massive amount of nostalgia for. I had a Sega Master System 1, as you can see up here, and I kept that right the way through until buying the Mega Drive 1 and selling that one off. So I skipped this system entirely, and I'm looking back on it, I'm quite glad I did, because it's missing a couple of key features. So it's missing the card slot off the front, and it's only got RF output on the back, and that's what the fault in this system is today. I've tried tuning this one in quite a lot. I've got two CRT TVs set up here that I've tried tuning in on. No matter what kind of little micro adjustment I do, I get the same output, which is I'm getting video out of it, I'm getting colour, then it'll drop to grayscale, then I'll get audio, then I'll get no audio. So there's something up with that RF unit. But the benefit of this system is it still has the RGB output on a signal on the main board. So what we'll do today is we'll build up a little circuit board with a resistor and a capacitor. We'll strip out this RF unit and we'll do a RGB to SCART output for it. Make it a lot more user friendly. You can plug it straight into a SCART slot and get a really nice RGB signal from it. So let's take a look. Let's build up that little circuit board and hopefully get it all up and running. Cool, catch you in a sec. Okay, so this is an Alex Kidd version of the Sega Master System 2. The Sonic version is slightly different. There's a cheat sheet for this one on my website, and that's what I'm going to be using to do the mod today. Okay, so a nice cheap setup this one. We got 4 capacitors which were picked out from my kit, 220 microfarads, 4 75 ohm resistors. They're just going to go for the 4 video channels. The 10 microfarad capacitor goes separate, and that's for the audio we're going to put in later. So what I'm doing now is just building up the breadboard, soldering in the capacitors, and then we're going to snip off these legs on the positive side and then put the resistors in line and solder those in place and bridge them across so we've got a circuit. Once that's done, we can cut this breadboard down to size so it'll fit pretty much where the RF unit was previously. Okay, so I've made space on the board now. I've removed the RF unit. To do that, you just snip the 3 legs, flip the board over and desolder the legs that's holding it into the board, and then the whole unit just lifts out. I've used the cheat sheet then to look where I need to solder my RGB signals and my composite signals. So I've used the through-hole positions for the RGB and then gone straight to the chip for the composite video. It just makes it a little bit easier by going through hole and out of the way, and you're not overheating that chip at all. I've taken the plus 5 volts from the right hand side of the power reg and the ground from the center. Okay, so you've got a couple of options for audio. This one is what I'm suggesting on the cheat sheet, and I think it gives a great audio output on there. So it's pin 15 of the Sega chip. You can take audio from the Sony chip that we were using earlier, but you can also take it from one of the capacitors. I think it's C31. If you remove that capacitor, you can use the negative side of that for the audio output as well. But I find it quite easy just to solder the positive side of the capacitor straight to the chip, and then we solder a wire on there which is going to go to our connector. Okay, so we finished all the motherboard wiring. Now it's time to wire all those onto our breadboard that we made up earlier. So I'm just wiring across from the RGB and the composite signals into the loose end of that resistor that we've got available, and then bridging across from the resistor to the wire just to form that circuit. One final wire to go on, and that's going straight from our Sony chip across to the C-Sync on the connector. Okay, so a little bit of a double-sided padded sticky just to hold the board in place now, and it fits nicely where the RF unit used to be. So we're going to flip that over, push it into place, and then stick it down so we can solder our connector onto it. I'm adding some Kapton tape just to put over that audio capacitor, just to hold it in place and make sure we don't short it or anything. We're not going to put the RF shielding back on, but just in case anything else knocks it inside later on. Now the connector is a same one that you're going to use for a Mega Drive 1 or a Master System 1, but as you can see it's a little bit bigger than the RF output, so we're going to need to drill a hole for that so we can fit it into place. Okay, so a quick measure up of the connector, and it's about 14.5 millimeters. We need to drill the hole just to fit that, so I'm going to use one of these drill bits that I think it's called a stepped drill bit, but I call them Christmas tree drill bits just because of the look on it obviously. The one that I've got is about 15 millimeters, so I'm going to use that, drill the hole a little bit bigger to give us a nice clean cut, and make sure that we don't go too big when we're drilling it. 2 more holes to drill. These are just going to be for M2 nuts and bolts to go through them. Holds the connector in place nice and tight, and looks really nice as well once it's finished. Last couple of wires just to wire in place before we put onto the connector. So we're connecting up the RGB in the composite video. So when I put the circuit board together, I left the negative leg of the capacitors coming through, and I bent them up as pins, so they'd isolated it out of the way, and I put some Kapton tape in there as well just to make sure it's not going to ground out. I'm using my hot air gun to use some heat shrink just to make sure everything's nice and neat and out of the way. Okay, so we're on the final bit of soldering now. So we're taking all of our wires. I'm using my cheat sheet that's in front of me, and I'm wiring each of the wires individually into the connector. As you can probably see, the connector's onto a cable already. I've used that cable to disperse a bit of heat, but I've also got it in a clamp so it holds it nice and neatly for me. It's pretty straightforward. Once you've got everything wired up, we can put it all back together and hopefully connect it up and see if it works. Okay, so we're up and running. We've got it set up on the CRT, looking absolutely stunning. That RGB signal is lovely compared to the RF output, which I don't know why Sega did this in the first place. They could have just put an RGB output on there and really given the home users the experience they wanted them to. There's one more fix I want to do to this system, and put in a toggle switch on the back to switch between the 50Hz and 60Hz modes. What I want to do is be able to switch between the 2 modes, because not all games are compatible between the 2, but also you gain the speed that the 60Hz gives you. There are switchless mods and things like that for these as well, but you can't beat a little toggle switch on the back of the system. Great, thank you for that, Vince. I'm back to you.
Thank you, Craig. I thought you did a brilliant job there, and it looks really professional the way that port comes out the back. A real neat job. And also, it's better than factory now, which is fantastic. So a few of you out there might not know what a SCART connector is. Well, this is one here. If you're from the UK and Europe, you're going to recognise that, but if you're from the United States, maybe not so. So there you go. Google is your friend. You can read up about that, but after this video, not before. Now, next up, oh, and Sega Master System means a lot to me because I went from the Spectrum 48K over to the Sega Master System, and for me, it was such a leap up. The colours, the graphics, everything. I loved that system. There was a lot of hours spent on that. So now, next up, we have Joey from a channel called Joey Does Tech. Now, Joey's a happy-go-lucky guy, and he's documenting his progress in electronics. So he started as not knowing much about them, and bit by bit he's picking up knowledge as he goes along, and he's bringing people along for the ride. Good thing about that is it inspires others to do the same, because then they can maybe see Joey, they might see him now and then look back at a year ago and think, oh, hasn't he made a lot of progress? In which case then it would inspire them to do the same, and that means there's more people fixing things in the world, which can only be a good thing. So here we have Joey looking at a Nintendo 2DS, which was purchased from eBay, and it was down as the game's not reading, so the game card slot not working.
Thank you, Vince, for this incredible opportunity. I think what you're doing for the YouTube scene when it comes to electronic repairs is incredible. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And hello to every single one of Vince's awesome viewers. Welcome to my channel. My name is Joey. I started learning how to fix electronics, specifically Nintendo DS Lites, in April 2020. So I've been doing it just over a year now, which is incredible to think. And I'm still very much an amateur at this stuff, but I love learning about it. There's so much to it. I usually purchase faulty stuff off eBay and try and attempt to fix it, each time trying to push myself out of my comfort zone. And for today's listing, we have a Nintendo 2DS faulty that doesn't read games. Personally, I've never owned a Nintendo 2DS before, and I'm really excited to dive into this one. Let's head over to the desk. Normally I'd have my blue mat for my repairs, however that is currently occupied with a failed Nintendo 3DS XL repair, so I'll put that to one side. This has been in charge, but I haven't had a chance to turn it on yet, so let's see if it actually turns on. First of all, we have a blue light, which is good. I think I've just seen the backlight on the screens, and there we go. Okay, so it turns on, which is good. Speakers. Speakers all good as well. Okay, how are we looking analog wise? Fine, that seems to be working with no issues. R's working fine. So is L. Directional buttons? All good. Okay, so good so far. Is there any game better than Mario Kart DS? I don't actually know where. Oh, there it is. Okay. It feels very sticky. Very sticky. And I think that's actually meant to pop out a bit more than what it just did. You can tell that it's... okay. Okay. Oh. Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure that's the game.
You'll have to excuse the shock. The eBay listing stated that the console did not read games.
Okay, let's try take this out. Okay, the game slot cartridge seems fine. However, it's a bit sticky. So we're going to take a can of air, firstly. I'm going to take some isopropyl alcohol, which is 99.9%. This stuff is what you use to clean electronics. So I'm simply just going to take a cotton bud and just soak this cartridge with IPA. Now we'll just place the cartridge back in the device, and I'm just going to keep doing this. After giving it a good clean with IPA, I've somehow made it worse. So as you can see, it's now not actually popping out. So if I push it to try and pop it out, it takes a lot of try. So I've made this worse now. There's a very strong possibility that the cartridge holder inside is bent. So I'm going to take the console apart and inspect it a little bit further. Unlike the rest of the Nintendo family, I'm pretty sure the 2DS is Phillips screws only. There's no tri-wings as far as I'm aware. So let's take this apart. I won't bore you with that, I'll be back in a sec. All the screws are now out, I just need to be super careful. There's a ribbon cable here that I need to disconnect before I end up ripping the cable. I think that's for the cameras, that ribbon cable. That would make sense. And I'll be completely honest with you guys, I think taking that apart hasn't really got me any further, because you can't necessarily see further inside a cartridge port if you just take the back plating off. So maybe a little bit silly on my behalf. I'm just going to take some IPA and a Q-tip, and I'm going to shove it right in there and give it a good old clean. Doesn't actually seem to be much gunk on the end of this Q-tip either, so I'm pretty sure the spring mechanism is down the left here, so I'm specifically trying to aim towards that. I think that's what's stopping the cartridge from coming back out. Gonna get some more IPA, focus on that area a bit more. Let's try the game now. Still not good. That feels so much better. I put some IPA on the top here and let it soak through to the spring. I don't know if that was the issue, but it feels a lot smoother now. Let's see if that's worked. A lot better. It comes out every single time, it just still feels very gritty. It's not like a smooth action, you know, it feels like I'm pushing in grit. Just a bit more cleaning, I think. Can of air. Final test. Let's see how we're looking now. So cartridge in, out. Going in a lot better and coming out 10 times better. Let's put it back together and give it a test. I'm used to working on Nintendo DS Lites where you've got ribbon cables that are twisting on screens. This looks fantastic for repairability. You literally take out the screen, you replace it, you feed the ribbon cable through the motherboard, and it's as easy as that to replace a screen. All right, I've just put this back together. I put it back together, originally I had to take it apart because I left a ribbon cable out, which meant that the screen didn't work. So I did soil myself for a little bit. Okay, let's see how easy this goes in and out now. So much better than before. Okay, good. Lovely. The power of IPA. Don't get me wrong, it's still not perfect. Like, it still feels like I have to push a little bit harder than normal, but at least we can actually get it out now, and lovely. That's good. Let's just double check that it's actually working. Let's put the game in. There we go. Out. In. Wicked. No, 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 no. That blue shell you're having me on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Hit him. Go, go, go. Yes. And there we have it. I can't tell you how many of my fixes are usually resolved with a good old clean with some IPA. IPA even saved my marriage, and I'm not even married. Huge thank you to yourself, Vince, and your awesome community for bearing with my nonsense for the last 5 minutes or so. I really, really appreciate the opportunity. It means a lot. Giving all sorts of different YouTubers a platform to post their videos on your channel is amazing. And now I'll let you crack on. Back over to you, Vince.
Thanks for that, Joey. A nice repair, and now another Nintendo 2DS saved from the fate of being left in a drawer unused for the rest of his life. And it shows you the importance of isopropyl alcohol. This stuff here, I never knew anything about it maybe 3 years ago. Now it's come into my life. It's in use all the time, and not just for electronics. My wife uses this as well for various things around the house, getting out stains and this, that and the other. This stuff is the miracle stuff. I think maybe apart from a screwdriver set and a multimeter, I think this is probably maybe the third most important tool to have in a toolkit. So now, that is it for the other YouTubers in this episode here, and now it's back to one of my fixes. So this was done earlier in the year, it's never been on YouTube before, and I got this Surface Pro tablet here off eBay for the grand price of £45. So let me show you what was wrong with it and how it was fixed up. And in this one, we're going to be trying to fix up this Surface Pro 3, so Microsoft Surface Pro, and it looks like a really well-made tablet. So I got it from eBay, and I bought it for £45. It was up for £50 or best offer, and it just says Microsoft Surface Pro 328GB, 40 broken, does not charge. Chop return i5 processor, and it says here, does not charge, but screen still works. Dent on charge port area, no charger supplied. But that isn't actually the problem, because I bought a charger for one of these, and this thing is working fine apart from the USB port. So it keeps exceeding the power. But I can see why he thought, or he or she thought, that it didn't charge okay, because when I put the charger on it, there's no charging light. Yet it definitely is charged. Right now this is 100%. But it's got a fault, and I'm just going to show you what happens when it's on, and then I'll show you the charging thing, and then we'll try and fix the USB port. So it keeps flashing up down here that a USB port has exceeded the power, and it comes up with this message here. And if I was to click close, it will just come up again, and if I tap on that, it comes up here, and if I click reset, then it comes up here, and it can do this for a couple of minutes, and then it will be fine again for about another 5 minutes, and then it will come up again. So you can see what happens with the USB ports. Obviously that's not ideal, so that needs fixing, and I'll show you the USB port in a minute. I can physically see the pin that's faulty. But when they were testing it, this is the reason why they thought it didn't charge. So when I initially turned it on, there was a battery charge symbol, and it didn't turn on, it was just coming up with a battery symbol. But as soon as I plugged this in and just left it for a while, it started to work. So we've got a charge port here, and you can see it has got a little dent in it here. And when I plug it in here, it's like magnetic, there should be a little light that comes on here, but that's not coming on whether I do it one way or the other way, but yet it's still charging. So it's not ideal, but I can easily live with that. Now the problem with these the reason they go cheap on eBay is because apparently they're a nightmare to take the screen off. Even people who know what they're doing end up smashing the screen. So there's a few things on YouTube where people have done it successfully. Other ones where people are doing teardowns, they openly admit that they broke the screen. So if this was my first attempt doing it, there'd be a strong chance that I was going to break it. Obviously, if there was something internally wrong with it that would stop it from working completely, I would take the screen off. But this thing seems to be working fine apart from the USB port. The charging thing I can just live with. Now I'm going to zoom right the way in. This is a USB 3 charging port, so it's got more pins than normal. So forget about the 5 pins at the front, look at the 4 pins at the back, and in particular you need to look at the one on this side here, and that's the one that's crushed right the way in, and that is the 5-volt supply for the USB. So I think what's happening is the 5-volt supply is shorting against the ground of the actual USB port, and that's why it keeps coming up with the error of the USB exceeded the power. Let me zoom right in to show you. Right, so this is a USB port here, and if you have a look, you can see the pins at the front here are all okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this is just a normal USB 2 at the back. So we've got the 2 data ones, I believe this one's ground, and can you see the power one? Look, it's not here. power one is not here. It's been pushed right the way back into there. I know it's hard to see, but can you see that that looks different than the others? So what I'm hoping to do is get a needle, the needle I've got in my hand, and I'm hoping to be able to pry that out. The problem I've got is it's going to be very hard to do on camera. Now, I'm not actually bothered if this breaks. I mean, if it breaks, it just means that the USB port's not going to work. At least it's not going to throw up the error. I think there's a very good chance it is going to break. So you can see these others, they're just like kind of sprung loaded a little bit, and then there's metal at the back. But I think what's happening is, I think the 5 volts is going up, and I think it's hitting this ground here. Because look, it seems to be very close to it. I think I'm going to have to use tweezers, the needle's not quite strong enough. See if I can hook it and bring it forward. I might be able to get it to lie flat again. But I think in doing that it's probably going to break. Somebody must have shoved something in here that wasn't, so they must have put the USB in the wrong way round or forced something into it. Now, I've got no way of disconnecting the battery. If I could, I would have pulled the battery out, but the battery's on the inside. But obviously this is off. Ah, you see it's broken there now. Right, okay, well, still might work though. There you go, that bit's out. Right, well I suppose when it goes in, it just taps them down like so. But I wonder, because we've got the... Mind you, that's not the lowest, that's not the highest point, is it? This way. So when that goes in, that should force it down like that. I think I'm going to try that. Right, let's see now if it's possible to plug this in. Yeah, but is it going to make contact? Let's see what happens now. Let's turn it on. Actually, before we do that, let's plug in the charger, see if it looks any different. The thing is, I think this is at 100%. No, the light's still not coming on, so that must be some different issue. I'm just going to put in my pin number. Okay, let's see now. I've got this little keyboard dongle in. Let's turn it on, and let's see if it does. Yes, there we go. It's recognising it. So it's not going to be ideal, obviously that's going to, there's a good chance of that bending up again, but at least now I'm not going to get the power surge. Yeah, there we go. Fantastic. So what a result for £45. That's really good. Now obviously taking the screen off would have been the better job and replacing the port completely, but that would risk breaking the screen, and the price of these screens are way more than £45. So in this instance here, I think it was well worth just doing the simple repair that it needed to get it up and running again. And that USB port is still running now. So this video here is via the USB port, and if I press play, it doesn't work on the battery whatsoever. It still works fine. Attempt to charge. So that is it for episode 5 of the YouTube Fixers. I really hope you're enjoying this series. There will be more episodes to come. So I'd like to give a massive thumbs up to Craig and Joey for taking part in this episode. If you like their segments on here, then have a look down in the description below and you will see their channels listed there. So you can head over there and subscribe. So until the next time, take care everyone, and I will see you very soon.